Good morning. My name is Beaudin. I am a health and safety professional. I've been in the health and safety profession now going on 15 years. A majority of my background is working with the oil and gas industry. In the oil and gas industry, one of the main tools we use that was very effective in keeping our employees safe was a JHA, a job hazard analysis. And today I want to show you why it's possibly the most important tool that you can use to protect your employees. A job safety analysis, JSA, is a process of systematically identifying workplace hazards by breaking down a particular job into a series of relatively simple steps so that the hazards and risks can be eliminated before the incidents occur. JSAs focus on the relationship between the worker, the tools, and the work environment. Job safety analysis are known by many terms, JSA, JHA, or JRA. They're all very similar and get you to the same goal. So when we're talking about a job safety analysis, JSA, they're required to do many things as far as getting them to be useful for you. So in the requirements for the JSA, you have to analyze the job-specific hazards. That's the first main category, and that will have to be done in order to get you further along in the process. So once you identify your job steps and the specific hazards, then we're going to use that information to prevent workplace injuries and illnesses. This is going to help you improve your job planning, get you proper procedures. So your procedures that you write for your company, for your HSE manual, these JHAs will help you get that process started. And then you'll use them later on, as we'll discuss further, on improving your procedures. They're going to help the workers recognize potential hazards. If the worker can't identify a hazard, it's hard for them to prevent it. And then last but not least, it's going to be good communication amongst your work crew and any other work crews on location. So a commitment to safety and health, JSA, you have to have training. Just like anything else that your employees do, they have to have the proper training in place so they know how to use it. So it's important that your employees be trained on the whole JSA process. This is something you will have to roll out to them if it's new to them. It's going to help ensure accuracy. So proper training is going to make sure that it's done correctly. And if it's not done correctly, it's not very useful. It's going to be compliant with the company's specific forms. So you have to have your own specific form that's going to work for your task. It's got to be fit for purpose. It needs to be completed prior to work. The JSA is not going to help you identify hazards and reduce hazards and make sure the entire crew knows that process if they don't do it before they start. Workers must participate. That means everyone. Your GM, your project manager, the foreman on site, and any workers need to all be involved in this process. A lot of people get caught up on that and will just have their foreman or someone fill it out in the truck and then have everyone review and sign it. The problem is you get your older experienced employees that get complacent. So these employees have seen these hazards every day and they kind of overlook them. So sometimes getting the new hands in there will get you a new set of eyes that can bring up situations or issues that you would normally not really focus on. And also if there's going to be any changes, so let's say something changes during the job, all of a sudden we got to do it a different way, or some new hazards are found as you're working, then we have to go back and revisit that JSA and update it. It has to be a live document. At the end, it must be signed off by the supervisor approving it, and then every employee needs to sign off that they've participated in it, they've read the policy, they've read the document, and that they agree with it. So why are we looking at JSAs? What's really the advantages to this? Well, it's a communication tool. It helps anyone on that job site or someone that shows up to the job site. They can review this form and it's going to communicate to them what's going on, what the hazards are, and what the precautions are. So that way they're aware before they enter the job site. It involves everyone on the job, so we get all sorts of input and perspectives for this process. It aids in training. So one really good way to know what my guys need to be trained on is if I look at their JHAs. I can see what they're dealing with out there, what they're doing, so therefore I know what training they need. Also, I see all the hazards listed and I know what kind of hazards these guys are having to face out there, so I know the proper PPE to get them and what my policies should address. Maintain safety awareness. So when everyone shows up to job sites, a lot of times, especially early in the morning, these guys are worried about their conversations with their wife or girlfriend, or what their kids just did, or what the boss just told them, or many things, road rage on the way to work. Well, the whole tailgate process with the JHA is going to rein everyone in so they know what to look for and get their mind focused back on safety so they're actually ready for the job. They're fit for duty. You're going to use it for a tool for investigations. Something happens, an employee gets hurt, and something, or even if it's a near miss, we can look at their JHA and find out, one, did they recognize this hazard before it hurt them? What precautions and controls did they put in place? Do we need to do some more training on the proper controls? Do we need to have more emphasis on what PPE to wear? So it's going to really help you out in investigations, and it's going to help you out in litigation. When things end up in court, one of the most popular sayings in court is, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So if you don't get your guys on the location to start filling out these JHAs, JRAs, JSAs, whatever your company wants to call it, then if it's not documented, then it's going to be hard to prove anything in court. So it's going to determine what actions will help eliminate and control the hazard. So overall, this is something that management or the safety person should be reviewing after they turn them in every job. And that way we can actually work with them and train them further. All right, so now that we understand why a JHA is important, or a JSA, let's identify the job for analysis. So that means first step is going to be, is we need to break this job down into some smaller steps. So if they're going out there to hook up wiring in a building, they don't just put down wiring a building. That's the main job that they're out there for, but we need to break it down into job steps. What does it take to wire that building? Now, it's easy to get lost in the weeds, and we can write a whole book on this, but that's not really what this is intended for. So we need to try to keep it in 8 or less steps. Let's concentrate on the main job steps that really have the hazards involved. Put them in order so it's easy to read and understand. And then once we get them documented on the JHA form, we need to make sure that we include post-job requirements and pre-job requirements. So what that means is, when they start on the clock, even if it's at your facility loading equipment and hooking up trailers, that's when the JHA process needs to start. That's the first job step. It doesn't necessarily always just start on the job. Your employees can get hurt at your facility getting ready and prepping before a job or after a job. So it needs to have all of it. We don't want to get focused on just job site safety, and then when they get back to the yard unloading, someone pulls a muscle, sprains an ankle, or gets hurt. Make sure that we record all the hazards. So when you list these 8 or fewer job steps, you'll go over and say, what are the main ways that people can get hurt? Then we have to develop solutions. So now that we've listed, this is what we're doing today, here's the job steps to do it. Here's all the hazards, the way everyone can get hurt on this job. What is the best way to protect ourselves? What controls should we put in place to make sure these hazards does not hurt anyone? And then finally, all the workers on the job must review, agree, and sign it. Save that documentation. So step one, we're going to list out the job steps. Remember I said we want to do about 8 or less. We don't want a whole book. So this little graph over on the right here, this little chart kind of shows you if we were going to change a light bulb today and we wanted to fill out a JHA to make sure employees are safe while they're changing out light bulbs. The first column shows we just got way too much detail. We don't have to necessarily list every time we turn around or pick something up or move something. And then you get in the middle one here and it's just too little. And this is what you'll usually see on JHAs. Guys usually try to do the least amount possible to get them past what they need to do. So we need to find the happy medium. So if they're going to go and change a light bulb, I'm looking at the main job steps that can get them hurt. They're going to get a ladder and a new bulb. So that involves lifting, walking, you got slip, trip, and fall hazards, strain hazards, dropped object hazards, something could fall off the shelf on their head. Then we're going to turn the light switches off. So we're going to kill the power. Once we kill the power, then we're going to go out and place the ladder underneath the light that needs to be changed. Using the ladder, that's going to be one of our main job steps with hazards, and then putting the ladder back in storage. So that's simple enough to be able to list a few of the main job steps, and then once we're doing that, we can look and list hazards for each one. All right, when we're looking at hazards, one of the things we need to understand is the severity. We don't necessarily need to list every hazard there is out there. There's a proper way to look at this to where they're listing the hazards that are most likely to happen. So when you're looking at a risk, we want to prevent risk on a job site to prevent injury. So when you're looking at the risk, we're looking at 2 sections to determine that risk. You got to look at the severity, and then you got to look at the likelihood to get a risk factor. So risk basically equals severity plus likelihood, and that'll get you your risk. And we want to focus on high risk, obviously, not low risk. We want to make what they're doing effective. So first we're going to look at severity. You're going to score your hazards 1 to 4. 1 is minor, will not cause injury or illness. Well, we don't need to focus on that then. That's a waste of time. We need to work our way up. So let's go with marginal. If it may cause injury and illness, then we need to look at it. Critical may cause severe, definitely want to look at it. And catastrophic may cause death. So when you guys are filling out the JHAs and they're listing hazards, you want to kind of get them to focus on definitely 3 and 4. What's the biggest injury and illnesses that we can prevent? And obviously death and serious injury is going to be top of the list. Next, we need to look at the likelihood on the bottom of that table. Improbable, so it's unlikely that it's going to happen. So if it's that unlikely, then we don't need to focus on that right now. So even if serious, according to the top chart there, if we go to catastrophic, something really serious, it may cause death. So let's say, okay, what could cause his death? Well, if a forklift came in the building while they were changing the light bulb on the ladder, hit the ladder, they fell over, and it ran over top of them. That's catastrophic. Yes, we need to focus on that. But is it probable? No, because we've got the doors shut and the forklifts are outside and they're inoperable. They don't come into the building. Well, in that case, then even though it's catastrophic and it's not probable, let's not worry about that right now. We can imagine hazards all day. Earthquake could happen, the building could fall on us. Tornado could come tonight while we're changing light bulbs and wipe the whole building out. If it's not probable, let's not get into the weeds. So same thing with unlikely. You just have to see how possible is it. What we're worried about is going to be 3, 4, and 5. Occasionally it could happen. It's probably going to happen, or happens quite a bit. So if you cross these 2 charts here on the top, 3 and 4, critical and catastrophic, and go down here and it's occasional, probable, and frequent, those are the hazards we need to focus on. So get them focused basically on the main hazards that are likely to occur or could possibly occur. All right, once we're talking about controls, there's a thing in the safety industry called hierarchy of controls. And this is something I really stressed during my OSHA 10 and 30 classes. When they're filling out a JHA, JSA, or JRA, or even for your guys that haven't been filling them out, they know there's hazards out there. Most of them know what the hazards are, whether it's mixing concrete and you got silica dust blowing in their face and big clouds. They understand that hazard. Working in a live panel, testing live equipment, they know what these hazards are that are out there. So what the most important thing is you got to teach them how to protect themselves from those hazards. And when you look at JHAs, especially in the oil field, when we first started JHAs and they were going, and I've noticed even with my guys here, whether it's the construction division, electrical, tower, pipeline, whatever it is, they want to go with the easiest control. So what I'll see over there all the time is wear a hard hat, wear gloves, wear steel toe boots, put your safety glasses on. Those are PPE. And if you look at this hierarchy of controls, PPE is the lowest level possible. And there's reasons for that. And we'll get into it here in a minute. Next one up on the list for the lowest has changed the way people work. So that's administrative controls. That's going to be your policies and your rules. All right, next one on the list, right kind of in the middle, is engineering controls. That's the most used. You're most likely to use that in most situations. And the reason is, if you go up to the top of this list, it says elimination. So they're saying basically if you eliminate it, well, don't go up there and change the light bulb. Now we've got no hazards, case closed. Well, the problem is elimination is very seldom going to be the answer because we have to work. There's things we have to do and there's jobs we have to do. So if elimination doesn't work, go down to substitution. What they're talking about there is, all right, well, maybe from now on we will use LED bulbs that last 3 years. All right, we're substituting something up there to where I'm not constantly having to put people up there and change the bulb out. Or instead of having them on a ladder, we'll put them in a scissor lift or an aerial lift. So you always try to eliminate, and if that's not possible, work your way to substitution, find a better way, better process, better equipment. If that doesn't work, then work your way down to engineering controls. Engineering controls, that's going to be things like putting a barricade out there. Instead of having my guys climb a ladder and change the light bulb, I've got this little pole with a thing on the top of it that the bulb sits in. I just reach it up in the air, can screw in and unscrew light bulbs. That's engineering it out to where it's a lot safer that way. Then if there was no way to do that, we're talking about policies where you write out this is the policy or the process to where we're going to change out light bulbs to try to keep them safe. But just remember, last but not least, PPE. When you're dealing with PPE, it's bad for many reasons. One is when it's PPE is required, I'm now relying on every one of my employees to go out there, pick the correct PPE, wear it correctly, inspect it, make sure it's in really good shape. So the chances of all that happening and relying on every one of them to make those right decisions, very seldom is that going to happen. So you never want to rely on that. That's the last case scenario. When everything else on that hierarchy of control fails, maybe the PPE will protect them. So once the JHA is signed by everyone, then we can start work. The job is to be conducted as described on the JSA. So basically, if you put it on the JSA, don't make it up. Make sure it's something that you're actually going to follow. And if things change, then modify the JHA. If things change, though, I want you to remember, you're really supposed to take a time out, stop the job, have everyone review the JHA, update it, sign back off on it, and then continue. Last thing you want is to go out there and be reviewing someone's JHA and look over and they're doing something totally the opposite. Also remember, if we ever get in court, you want to make sure that obviously when they interview the witnesses that everything's going to jive with what the JSA says. If they fill out a JHA or a JSA just for the heck of it and list some things and don't follow it, that's going to be very bad for you. All right, Well, I appreciate you coming to the meeting today and spending a little time reviewing JJs and JSAs and seeing the importance of them. I promise you, once you start this process with your company, it's going to get them more focused on safety before every job. It's going to make them feel better because they actually feel like they're part of a process that's going to keep them safe on the job site. It also teaches and trains your guys. So when your guys are reviewing this stuff, filling out the JHA, all your newer guys are getting all this safety information and experience from all these older ones on things to look for, things to watch for. It's a great way for them to communicate with each other and to learn off each other. It will help them identify hazards. So right now they go out there, they're worried about the job, getting the job done, how to get the job done. So this is going to make them actually look at it and say, you know what, that's a hazard over there. That's a hazard over there. Here's another hazard. What can I do to fix this hazard? That's what you want on the job. When you do that, you will see your safety rating, your OSHA logs, and everything will reflect a better safety program. Give me a call at any time. Again, I'm Don Beaudin, and if you need any help with the JHA process, I can give you further assistance. Thank you.